welcome to the Aeon 14 podcast. I think this is number 26. Am I right?
No, this is 28.
This is 28.
Yeah.
I got to fix my numbers.
It might be 29, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's 28.
this is just going to be a running gag that I have no idea how many episodes we've actually made.
There are actually a couple of them where I've had to put corrections, like a little text correction over top of it, because we both were wrong.
This is episode a lot. So I'm James, and today I am joined by Amy Duboff, Andrew Dobell, and Michael Cooper. So hey, everybody, how you doing?
Hello. Doing well.
And I think actually Amy and Andrew are joining us from far, far away, but you're both in the same country now, right?
Yes, we are.
That's exciting.
Absolutely.
So if you're new to the podcast, we talk about all things Aeon 14 and all things Aeon 14 related, from the science behind the series to science fiction and other things that we think are cool or that you tell us you want to hear about. So today we're celebrating the launch of Anomaly at Circa, which is a joint venture between Michael and Andrew. Anomaly is something, it's special in the world of co-written Aeon 14 novels, since it's both an Aeon 14 novel and a Star Magi novel, which is spanning, damn it, we got to start over.
Okay.
I knew I was going to do that. I got to give it the hard. I have to give it the hard G. I'm sorry.
That's all. I'll know where to go.
I was going to leave it. It was fine. I wasn't going to say.
No, it's got to be right.
Well, you also said it was Anomaly at Circa. It's Anomaly on Circa, too. So.
Ooh, okay.
But I wasn't going to call you out on that either. That was a little correction on the screen.
All right. Well, I'll just go back to today we're celebrating since.
All right.
Sure
okay.
thing.
So today we're celebrating the launch of Anomaly on Circa, a joint venture between Michael and Andrew. Anomaly is something special in the world of co-written Aeon 14 novels, since it's both an Aeon 14 novel and a Star Magi novel, spanning both Michael and Andrew's worlds. This book was also written by Trading Chapters, which has its own special challenges, and we'll talk about that. It's actually, as a writer, as a reader you might not realize, but as a writer that's actually a really cool and kind of difficult thing to do, but it's also a lot of fun. So I'm excited to talk about that. So we get to talk about Anomaly, how Michael and Andrew went about writing the book and working together, and then also what a crossover book means for the future of Aeon 14. And then also Andrew has some really big plans for Star Magi, which I think is going to be really cool to hear about. So depending on how the conversation goes, we're also going to hear about PAX East, where Michael ran around like a crazy person. And if you haven't checked out the photos on, I believe they're on your Facebook mostly, right?
Yeah, they're mostly on my feed, but I linked to them in some posts on the
great.
fan group.
They are pretty awesome. So go find those and look at them. We're going to talk about PAX East, and then we're hoping to actually clean up a couple topics, that we talked about in the last episode where we were talking about sexuality in the future. There are just some things like, inevitably you stop a conversation and then it's like, oh, I wish we talked about this. So if we get to that, awesome. If not, we'll probably touch on that at a later episode. So before we do all that, let's get into some updates. Michael?
Let's see what's been going on. Well, obviously, Anomaly on Circa just came out, and that was a ton of fun to do, and we'll get more into the process of writing that later. And then following that, I've been working on Rika Rising, which is the first book in the Rika's new series called The Genevian Queen, and that one I'm writing. The reason when I first started the Rika books, I wanted to write it as an entry point into Aeon 14, so anyone who wants to get into it could use that as a starting point. I'm trying to do that with the same thing with this book, which is a little bit more difficult when you're starting with this massive cast of characters. It's a lot easier when I started the first one; it was just Rika. It's a lot. Then I could just ease people into the universe. But I'm going to see if I can pull this one off, at least make it like a bit of a starting point. This one, obviously, as the name might imply, the Genevian Queen has a bit more of a political element to it. So that's going to be a bit of a thing in this book. And that was something that also kind of featured in the Empress and the Ambassador book as well, and that there was a bit of a political element there too, which a lot of the Orion War books featuring Tanis don't really touch on, because Tanis basically just says, we're going to do it this way, and everybody says, okay. You don't have a lot of debate or maneuvering to get things done a certain way. And then Lisa is also wrapping up Sirius, which will be the 5th book in the Enfield Genesis series. And I'll be starting on that one pretty shortly as well. And then And then I guess actually right after that, Amy and I are going to Jordan Con at the end of the month, which is going to be a riot. We're going to be more running around like crazy people
Oh
down
yeah,
in
it's going to be
Atlanta.
awesome.
And then I'm actually going to be at Dallas for a conference there where I'm talking about writing, about advertising, and actually no, everything I'm talking about there is advertising. And I might get to stop by Dallas Comic Con too, so I'm hopeful for that as well. I might get to go there.
What conference is that where you're going to talk about this stuff?
Called Inkers Con.
Inkers Con, okay.
Yeah, which is about inking books, not inking tattoos. Oh, and I guess, and next weekend I'm actually at a conference for the New England Speculative Writers. I'm doing two talks there. One about building a massive universe, and one about advertising as well. So I've got a lot of appearances going on this month, and I guess this month and the very beginning of next month. Should I talk about PAX now, or do you want to talk about that after everybody else goes through it?
Let's talk about that after, because I think that's a big topic.
It is, yeah. I think it's it then.
That's it. Anything on Patreon, or how's Snark going?
Well, I haven't put the Snark cards up for sale yet because I'm trying to make the play mat still, which I should have done pretty soon. I just got distracted by everything else that's been going on. So once I get the play mat available, then I'll put up all the different flavors you can buy this at: the single deck, the dual deck, or the dual deck with the play mat, and then people can start buying it.
Okay, that's going to be cool. I feel like there was something else. Was there a new short story on Patreon, or
not yet? No,
not yet. Okay, that's coming. Okay, cool. Andrew and Amy, did you have any updates? Amy?
Not that much. I'm slowly working forward on the Serenity book one. The last week I've gotten distracted with some marketing activities, as happens. That's one of the things with being the indie author. It's not just the writing. There's this whole other business side to it. So that has kind of been the story of the last week. So nothing too much to share, but working on some cool things.
And how are things going settling into the new place? Because you've been there about a month now?
It's been good. It's been good. I have a couple of author acquaintances that are in the area, so it's nice to have a built-in social network there. I'm actually getting together with them tomorrow at a little informal coffee gathering, so it'll be nice to put some faces to the online presence that I know from some people. Yeah, and we've been enjoying it here. A good apartment, and it's been walkable, which is nice. And yeah, life is good.
Oh, that's great.
Getting out into the world, Amy. I'm so proud of you.
I know. Well, I mean, let's not get too crazy. I'm still leaving the apartment maybe once a month, but I could at least go out onto the balcony and look out on the world.
Yeah, I'm not good at getting out either.
I can't help it. Andrew, how are things going for you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, very recently, I've been really busy with Circa and writing and editing and getting all that together. Just prior to that, I finished the third book in my Star Magi series, so that came out a couple of weeks ago. And then the next thing, I'm going to be starting a brand new series, which I think will be called Arcanum Black Ops. And it's a kind of set in the same universe as Star Magi and Magi Saga. So it's a kind of urban fantasy universe. But this is going to focus on like a secret agent type person, like a Black Ops, highly trained kind of person who's hunting down kind of magical items which are being traded in a kind of black market, kind of underground kind of area.
Cool.
So, yeah, it should
That
be
should
fun.
It belongs in a museum.
Yeah. think James Bond crossed with Indiana Jones, kind of thing. So it should be fun.
Yeah, cool. And you've been doing a lot of art lately as well, right? Aren't you, for any authors listening, aren't you looking potentially at some pre-made covers, and you've got a site that you've been adding a lot of work to?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously I do a lot of covers for clients such as Michael here. But I also do my own covers, and I've recently, well, I say recently, it's been on my mind for a long, long time to do some pre-mades, which certain other people do. Tom Edwards is a good example. In fact, I was talking to him the other day, and he was saying, "You should do pre-mades. You should do this." And it's like, you know what? I really should. Yeah, I've done one. I'm preparing the second one. So yes, I'm looking at putting some pre-made covers together. When I have a collection, maybe around 10, if I can get that many done fairly soon, then I'll dump them all online and people can buy them.
Cool.
For readers that don't know what pre-mades are, so that would be, sometimes it's actually very difficult to find awesome art, cover art, especially cover art that is unique. And so you may have noticed when you're looking at different covers that you see elements that are kind of the same across a lot of different covers. And that's one of the really neat things that Andrew does, is develop so much of these things himself. But then to be able to get Andrew's unique style at a reasonable price, or I don't know, maybe not. Maybe not. This might be like, it's actually better to do the custom work.
Yes, but because I'm normally so expensive, no one can afford me.
Well, no, custom work is it's a challenge, and it's such a big part of
Yes.
someone's brand that Andrew brings to this. But what pre-mades mean is basically, if I'm going to plan out a series for the year or 2 years, I could buy all 5 covers, and then I've got that locked in. I don't have to write the book and then worry about, can I find an artist later?
Yeah, it basically means they've been made prior to everything else. So, I'm not taking any kind of direction from a client or anyone. No one's coming to me saying, can I do this? I'm just going, what would make a cool cover? I'm doing it. And then anyone that feels that fits their, thing, then they can buy it. So that is basically it.
One neat thing about pre-mades, I think, is when people buy the pre-mades and then don't even have the book, planned.
Yeah.
Just so the pre-made can lead to the book, which is also kind of cool.
Some people, though, buy a lot of pre-mades and just sit on them and actually never produce a book with those pre-mades.
This is true.
And some people actually get them so that no one else will get them. They hate buy it's called hate buying pre-mades.
Uh-huh.
Well, at least I would call it that, because in Magic the Gathering, if you're doing a draft and you draft a card just that no one else can get it, but you have no intention of playing, it's called a hate draft. So I feel like that's hate pre-mades. You just don't want anyone else to have this awesome cover. So
I never thought of that. It's like advertising, how people have now begun bidding up, the ads on their own page and whatnot as a way to keep people off. I've heard people talking about that. That's really funny.
What I do.
I hadn't thought of covers happening the same way.
Well, I don't do it to keep other people off, but I want to make sure that someone comes to my page, they don't see a lot of other people's books as well. They see more of my books. And same thing in search results. Like, if you don't bid on your own name in search results on Amazon, someone else's book is going to be above yours in the search results. So you have to be, which, to be honest, is more of a dig against Amazon, that Amazon forces authors to basically pay to have their book show up first when people search for their books. But that's a whole different topic.
I know. Well, eventually Andrew can just have a retainer, so that if you pay me $1,000 a month, I won't make pre-mades, and then
there you go.
Know that my art will only be available for your books.
That would be the other way to do it.
Let's see. For me, I don't have a huge amount of updates. I basically have the full draft of Eva Destruction is done. I did something that I haven't done in a long time, and I physically printed the book. And so now I'm reading through, well, because I really want this to be tight and to work well. And so
I think there's like a big spot that Michael has to write all of this as well, right?
There are some places like that, but I want to also make sure I'm setting that up properly. So,
right.
So that's been, it's funny. I just haven't held like a giant chunk of, and even at like double-sided, it's still 200 pages. So it's pretty,
that's half a ream.
It's a big book. Yeah. So I want to just make sure everything's, working right. And that's been the main thing. So anyway, what else do we have to update on? I think the main thing is PAX East, which if you haven't checked out the photos, and I think, well, why don't we back up and talk about what you were thinking when you went to PAX East, and maybe some of this even came out of 20 books, and the experience of wearing the Deadpool costume and how people responded to that. And then, I've been to plenty of conferences, especially as a writer, where you see a writer sitting at the table with their books. It just looks lame. Nobody's talking to them. And that they paid to be there even, and they're just not even getting anything out of that experience. And so were you thinking about that when you made your plan to go?
Well, I mean, yeah, so this kind of did all start with me doing Deadpool, which was really just originally a Halloween costume last year, but I kind of wanted to be like a half decent Halloween costume, so I made it pretty good. Then as a joke, I said I'll wear it to the 20 Books conference, which is a writers conference that we all go to in Vegas. My thing is like, I'll take a picture of your book with Deadpool, and then you can use it in marketing and whatnot. And very few people brought their books for pictures with Deadpool, but lots of people wanted to have pictures with Deadpool.
Mhm.
And it was actually really neat. I actually met about 7 new authors that I now chat with almost daily, just from doing that. And we've done work together. We've done crossovers together. Actually, one of them is going to become an Aeon 14 author. Nicole, who was on a podcast a little while ago, she's working her way through the books so that she can write in the series. And that was all just because when you dress up in cosplay, you sort of give everybody permission just to walk up and start talking to you, because that's kind of the idea. And it makes you more approachable. And it also makes it easier for you to approach other people because there's immediately something interesting to chat about, like what the hell are you wearing and why are you doing this, type of thing. So it's really kind of fun and freeing in that way. And I kind of got bit by the bug, and I started to understand why there's this huge cosplay community out there and people that just love to do it. Like I got invited to a cosplay laser tag that's going on in the summer, and that's all it is. It's just cosplay laser tag. Everybody's going to dress up and go play laser tag and have a grand old time. And so what Amy was talking about being a writer is that, we don't have marketing departments. We don't have like a big corporation or a publisher like that does stuff like that for us. And I've been relying very much on online ads for all of the marketing. But online ads have a lot, one, they cost a lot of money and they're not that much fun. Whereas cosplay is a shit ton of fun. Although it also costs a lot of money. So it doesn't really mitigate that. But you can go out and you can meet people and make a personal connection with people and do more to get them interested in the books you're writing and in who you are. It gives you a lot more media to share. Like I can share all sorts of pictures now and make my Instagram more interesting and my Facebook posts more interesting rather than just me posting, look, I've released a new book. Look, I've released a new book, type of thing. So there's a lot of elements like that to it. And so I had actually bought tickets to PAX. I think it was before I decided I was gonna cosplay, because all my friends always went and they always talk about how amazing it was. So PAX, for those of you who don't know, PAX is one of the largest gaming conventions outside of what's that big one that goes on in the southeast, not South by Southwest, but the other one, electronic.
What city? Comic-Con?
E3. E3 is what I'm thinking of.
Oh, that's in Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas. Yeah. Southwest, not Southeast. Yeah. PAX is huge. Like PAX Boston, PAX East is 60,000 people go to that conference. And it's also really big. It's not just computer games. That half of the expo floor is card games and Magic the Gathering and board games and stuff like that. And this year was really cool because Riot wasn't there and Blizzard wasn't there. So there weren't that many big AAA game developers there. And the place was packed with indie developers. So there's a lot of indie game developers out there. And I didn't really understand the indie scene that well, but they're basically startups and they have to go secure their own funding, and they usually run out of distributed offices and stuff like that. And they were actually the indie game developers were far busier than the bigger game developers that were present, which was really cool to see. There were also some streamers there too, actually, like people who are like Twitch streamers and whatnot. And they had booths and they were actually streaming from their booths, and some of them had like crowds of like a couple hundred people standing around watching. As they streamed from the conference floor and stuff like that. Or there's crazy things that there was like just people like just doing, there was actually even like a big arena area where there was probably seating for about 200 people. There were announcers, they had like big boom cameras, all sorts of stuff going on. So it was really just a fun event to be there. And then going as Deadpool basically just gives you permission to do just about whatever you want while you're wearing the Deadpool mask. I didn't do too much the first day because I was kind of just getting into this whole like I'm in cosplay. I'm dressed up around a bunch of other people. Luckily, lots of other people were as well. But on Saturday, I think I photobombed at least 200 pictures, and I did all sorts of crazy things. Like if someone had followed me around with a camera, I would probably it'd be hilarious and really embarrassing, some of the crazy stuff that I did. And then because the cosplay I was wearing was a mashup between Diva, who's a character from the game Overwatch, and Deadpool, I got to be on the Overwatch photo shoot, which I think was about 50 people. And actually, the funny is, not all the people cosplaying Overwatch even knew it, so it could have been a lot bigger. And it took us an hour and a half to actually shoot all the different characters and different poses and group shots and whatnot. And it was a ton of fun to do all of that too. So that was it was a lot of. The one thing I missed out on is I didn't have good business cards for tagging. Because obviously, if you're going to do that sort of thing, the idea is you want people to take pictures of you and then post them on Instagram and whatnot and tag you. So next time I go to a thing like that, I'm actually going to have a business card that is one side about being an author and one side about cosplay, and then get all the cosplayers and people that take pictures of me to tag me with every shot they take. Because I was probably in about 500 or 600 pictures that got taken that day. So you can imagine like how, from a marketing standpoint, how good that is. So that's something I want to do more of is get out there, have fun, meet new people, get to have conversations. I got readers from this because I was following the hashtags for PAX on Instagram and like commenting when I saw pictures of me, and then people were going back looking at my profile and then going to aeon14.com and looking at the books. So I actually met people like the next day that said it was cool that I was a science fiction writer, and they're going to check out my books because they're into sci-fi as well. And that was like they took a picture of me, I commented on it. They went and looked at my profile, looked at Aeon 14, found me like this. It was like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon to make it all the way back to me type of thing. And it still worked. So I'm thinking if I had a business card I could just hand out that would do this, would be even better. And I guess what you're talking to, James, about like a lot of authors by nature are often more introverted than extroverted. I'm sort of a rare beast in that respect, as you can see by what I'm wearing today. Yeah, so it's a fun way to market and get your name out there and talk with people in a situation where you normally wouldn't. And then when I'm going to go to signings this year, I'm actually going to wear this. I'm going to add in, Andrew's going to send me the armor that Tanis wears on some of the covers, and I'm either going to see if I can modify it to fit me or see if I can just use it as a template to make more, to at least make like a chest piece and some greaves and stuff like that. So that'll all match. And then you're going to walk through a signing event with a bunch of authors, like James said, all sitting behind their tables. And then you're going to see me holding the Dolph, like this type of thing. Either, and we'll see if it works. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of this marketing stuff. You don't know if it's going to work until you do it. But either A, I'm going to scare everybody away and I'll just have a really relaxed time, or B, I'm going to be mobbed and it'll be awesome. I think people are going to want to just come by and see what's going on, though. I think you're going there. I mean, to be honest, the romance authors a lot of times have models, right, that are standing at their booths. So it's not actually that unusual, these signings, to have this sort of thing going on. And even like the urban fantasy authors, a lot of times they dress up. They're just like, they're just wearing like a witch costume or something like that. So this isn't entirely.
Well, I think it's sales, and it's how do you. So if we're enticing all these people into this place, and you're almost creating a barrier. If you've got a stack of books and it's like there's an expectation they have to come up and ask about, oh, what do you write? What's your newest book? Like, why should I read it? Like, no, let's give them something fun to do. And I find, like, I do think of myself as introverted, but if I have a reason to talk to someone, I can do it. And sales is always that reason. So, hey, look at all these cool things I have. What do you like? Tell me about your favorite science fiction character.
Would you like to hold the Dolph?
Exactly. I know. Don't point the Dolph at anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think stuff like that makes it a lot more fun, and it's just not so static.
It even lights up too, so.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah. That was actually part of it. That's why I saw this weapon and this cat suit on Etsy. And I'm like, they're both green. They're going to go together so well. And if I could like modify the armor that Tanis wore, which is also green, I could actually have like a full costume, that I could wear. So. And one of the reasons why I'm wearing it today is because I didn't actually get to wear it at PAX, because after going on I went on Friday and it was packed. Like there's places where you were like just weaving through, like turning sideways to squeeze through groups of people. I'm like, I really don't want to walk around with this thing on my back. On the next day, which was busier. So that's when I went as Deadpool and just photobombed everybody. And that was actually a great plan because it was a ton of fun. But yeah, this is what I'm wearing it today in honor of not getting to wear it at PAX. And then I'll wear it again for signings this summer, which should be fun. Actually, I've got the conference I'm going to speak at this coming weekend. They want me to cosplay while I do my presentation. So I told them if they sell a few more tickets, like I actually use this as a bit of a thing, like a few more people sign up and they reach a certain number of people attending the conference, I'll do it. So I think I'm 2 people away from having to cosplay at that conference.
Well, and for any authors that are listening, like everybody to me is like, well, I need to cosplay. What am I going to cosplay as?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how can you take it to the next level? Like, what could you do that's different so everybody's not just copying Michael? Like, I'm really wondering if the next 20 Books conference, like how many, cosplayers we're going to see running around.
Well, we're having, at the next 20 Books conference, we're having a party. A costume cosplay party.
Oh, I did not know about that.
Yeah.
Are you? Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah. So, and I think right now it's on for any authors who are listening, it's in the 20 Books Vegas group. There's a sign-up sheet for all the different events and meetups that are going on. And one of them is row number 10 is the cosplay one. Even Craig Martell's going to be there. So I'm not too sure what he's going to do, but he signed up for it, which is funny because last conference he talked about how he thought it was nice that 20 Books wasn't people dressed up, but I'm probably going to dress up the whole time. I think I'm just going to be Deadpool the entire time I'm there just for kicks. I mean, why not? I think people actually expect it at this point. So I'm like, I'm giving my fans what they want. That's my plan.
It is
Although-
really easy to spot you in a crowded room when you're wearing
Exactly, yeah. Although last year when I was there, we were talking about our favorite superheroes, and people asked me, because I was cosplaying Deadpool, like, is Deadpool your favorite superhero? And I said, actually, right now it's Wonder Woman, I think. So they're trying to pressure me to cosplay as Wonder Woman for the next 20 books. So we'll see.
Well, when you did, it was Cortana, or was that the Overwatch character?
I was Cortana. Yeah,
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
Cortana.
I didn't recognize you. Like, I seriously mean that. When I saw the pictures of you and
Yeah.
your daughter, it was who is that? Like, I
Yeah.
recognized her.
Yeah, so for those of you who didn't see the pictures, and I'll post the links to some of the stuff I put up in the notes for this thing. But yeah, so my daughter, originally I was going to be Deadpool on Sunday as well, and my daughter was going to go as Master Chief because she's got a huge crush on Master Chief from Halo. And she's Master Chief for Halloween all the time, but she was Master Chief Unicorn too, so she had a unicorn little flowery headband. And she was having a bad day one day and didn't want to go and whatnot. And I knew that, to be honest, that PAX was going to be a little bit much for her, but I thought it'd be kind of neat for her just to get an experience. So we'd go for a couple of hours. She would kind of see what it's like to be around a crowd like that, because she's never been around a crowd like that. She's never taken the train into Boston or anything like that either. So it was sort of a fun experience for her. But she was nervous one day, so I said, well, why don't I go as Cortana to your Master Chief? And I kind of expected her to say no, because it means I have to dress up like a girl. And she was like, yes. She was like totally into it. And then she's like, you have to be Unicorn Cortana as well. So when you see the pictures, I will be wearing a nice flowery unicorn headband. I didn't like wear breasts or anything like that because I felt like that might be a little bit too awkward for my daughter to be around daddy while daddy's wearing. Didn't completely cross-dress it, but I did the makeup and everything like that because
you did a really good job with that blue makeup. I mean, it was flawless. It was really good.
I practiced because I wanted it to look at least half decent. I didn't want to go out there and be like the splotchy, weird-looking guy and embarrass my daughter even more than she might ever be embarrassed. So
the first iteration with the blue was
it was the first blue. The first blue I got was a lot more purple, so I really looked like I was about to like turn into a blueberry and be rolled away by the munchkins. Or not munchkins.
I made appropriate jokes. Don't worry.
Yeah,
good.
Mocked me properly. Yeah, the Oompa Loompas were going to show up and roll me away if I wore that blue face paint. But yeah, so I practiced because I figured, like, you know, if you're going to do this sort of thing, you either have to do it deliberately.
You either do it or you don't. There's no half measures.
Or you do it really badly on purpose, or you do it really good. Because when we were there was a guy. So if you've ever played, anyone's ever played Overwatch, there's a character called Bastion, and he's like a robot with a big turret. And he's a very identifiable face, and he also has a little bird with him that's always on his shoulder. So this guy actually quite literally went as like just one cardboard box, and it's still like all the labels and everything. It was just an Amazon box, and then another one on his head with like just like a blue strip where the robot's eye was supposed to be, except it was just blue pack. It was like blue painter's tape, just strip of blue painter's tape on the front of the box, and then a little stuffed bird on his shoulder, and you immediately knew who it was. But it was the most terrible costume ever. But it was like amazing. It was like, yes, you know. So,
yeah, but they, as you say, they do it on purpose, and you know, it's done for effect, and people love it.
Yeah, it was great. So
yeah, I mean, I've been to quite a few conventions because before I started doing covers, I used to do cosplay photography. So I used to go to conventions in London and hang around and you know, stop kind of cosplayers and say, you know, would you have a photo? And so I used to do all that. And it's a whole community, and these guys love what they do.
Yeah.
So it's great fun.
Actually, the first day I went, I did have a photographer that did about a 30-minute shoot of me. So
really,
yeah,
okay.
we booked. I was a little bit late, so we didn't get to do quite as much as we wanted to. But yeah, he took a bunch of pictures of me. There is one with me as Deadpool making out with a support beam. In the area. So eventually I'm going to get these. I don't want to hassle because he wouldn't take any money. Like I offered to pay him for it, but he didn't want any money. So I don't. You can't. I mean, making money from that kind of thing is really, really hard to do because vast majority of photographers there do it for free. Yeah.
So why would they pay someone when they can just walk to the next photographer and get it for free? So. Yeah. And they're all good. They're all good photographers. And
actually, this one guy was walking around with, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was like a light that basically made everything dark.
Yeah.
It was like this big box light on the one guy had in a stick. And you look at the pictures and all you could see was the person. You couldn't see anything in the background at all.
Yeah, no, the first time I went, that is exactly what I did. And it's using the settings on the camera, and you make the settings so that if you took the photo without the flash, it would just be black. So you have a I'm going to use some kind of photography terms for those that know, but if you have a really high f-stop, really low ISO, and a decent shutter speed, you can basically make it, the camera kind of hardly pick up any light. So it looks black. But if you add a flash in, and you've got a subject stood in front of you, and you use a flash, then the flash puts out enough light because it's really bright that it lights the subject, and the camera will only see the subject, and so you get a black background with the subject stood there.
Yeah, so he did a bunch that were basically like that, which is pretty wild because we're in a crowded conference center, with like 10,000 other people around us, and he's got these pictures where it's just the person he's shooting. Like you can see a little bit of stuff in the background, but
sometimes,
and you could clean that up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, because that was my issue when I started doing it, because I didn't want the pictures to look like I was at a convention, because there's people around everywhere, and you can never find a decent background. So that's what I did the first time, and that's when I thought, hang on, I've got another way of doing this. I can take the picture and then cut them out in Photoshop and add a background in and do composite, and that led to the book covers and everything.
That's cool. That's kind of neat how that worked.
Yeah.
I think I'll post a link to it as well, but the coolest picture I think I took the entire time was there was a guy that was cosplaying Thor with the Ragnarok costume, and he did actually this was the Avengers costume because he had Stormbreaker, the axe sword thing, or the axe hammer, and he was spot on. His costume was amazing, and also even like the discs on Thor's outfit like glowed. And the best part about it was that his axe hammer had a speaker in the end and had an iPod built into it, and could blast music loud enough that you could hear it in this crowded lobby of the conference room. So like for everything he did, he had like different music. When he was like, there's a picture of him like, so I'm on my hands and knees, or I'm on my knees in front of him, like trying to claw up at him as Deadpool, and he's got his arm around my neck, and he's got his hammer about to smash into me. He's got Highway to Hell blasting out of his hammer as he's doing this, And then there was one time where, so he was with the Ghostbusters, who had like amazing costumes, like their guns like lit up and fired, looked exactly like they're out of the movie. So it was him and the 4 Ghostbusters, and they like were doing dance numbers in the middle in the lobby area. So like they're doing like 5x5 by the Backstreet Boys. So you got like Thor in the front, and you got the Ghostbusters all singing behind and stuff like that. Like they did really, like, people get super hardcore about this stuff.
I feel like there's cosplay, and then there's like next level cosplay to stand out above the other cosplayers.
Yeah, and that's what doing. Yeah. I'm just like regular cosplay. Just throw on a Deadpool catsuit, give me like my $15 guns, and I'm good to go. But yeah, some of these people.
You get the people that just buy a costume and go along, and you get the kind of, there's different levels of how much money you spend as to how good that is, but then you get the people that actually make their costumes and spend hours and hours and hours doing it, and I mean that's impressive.
Well, even if you just buy a lot of it, like this gun with shipping was a $350 weapon, so the stuff's not cheap, and this catsuit was $130,
Absolutely.
So even if you buy it, it's not a cheap hobby.
Oh no,
unless you're a cardboard box guy.
Well, at WizardCon here in Portland, one of the cool things they had was they had a Stormtrooper collective that everybody, like the groups of cosplayers that were doing group cosplay, was kind of fun because they did little skits and they arrested people, and you didn't realize they were all together until they got together to do some joint thing.
That would be probably the 501, the 505.
The 501st.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That is what it is. So okay, I didn't realize
there's chapters of that all around, and there's UK chapters, and they do a lot of charity stuff, and they go to hospices, and where there's kids with cancer and stuff, and they'll go and hang out, and they do loads of really cool stuff like that. I mean, it's not just people having fun going to cons, which they do, but they do a lot of really cool charity stuff as well. So
they have a lot of rules too about like how like the weapons that you can have to be in the 501st, the armor has to be like a certain type, so you can choose like are you Rogue Squadron style armor, are you original series armor, and you have to like pick what you're in. That actually determines what you get put into.
And whenever you go to if you ever see pictures from the premieres of like the Star Wars films, generally it's those guys that are all lined up, and they get invited to all the premieres and all that kind of thing. So
I did actually, I didn't get to wear this because I didn't wear this outfit, but I did actually make this to go along too. So I actually got into a little bit of work making my own costumes. So when when I do it more, I'll have this thing that I'll get to have with me, and then I'll be, you know, a little bit more menacing than I normally look. But this actually only took a day to make as well, so that was it wasn't too bad.
What did you use as your base? For folks that can't see, Michael's got a. Is it made of foam or is it?
Yeah, it's made of
it's a mask.
It's made of EVA foam.
Okay.
So it's like just a crafting foam that you can buy in rolls on Amazon, and then it dulls knives like no tomorrow. So you have to cut it with utility knives, and you have like 1,000 spare blades or a way to sharpen them. But you actually have to so you actually take it and you cut it you have a template and you cut it all the right angles and whatnot, and then you use a barge glue, which is the kind of glue that cobblers use to glue shoes together. And then and it works amazing for foam. So then you start gluing it all together, and then once you get it all done, you have something like, the cool thing too is like, if you get the right paints, it's like really flexible still. Like you could actually bend it and fold it, and if you actually even get creases in it, you can use a heat gun and just use a heat gun, and the foam will re-expand, and it'll get rid of the creases. So it's actually really cool thing to do. Yeah, so this was my first project. I'm definitely gonna do more of this because this was actually a lot of fun. And actually, when we went as Cortana and Master Chief, I made Eva a Halo plasma sword too out of foam as well. So she had that in the pictures, and that was something that we quickly made. So it's a lot of fun to do that, to make stuff out of foam. I want to do more of that and learn how to do better at it. So that's when Andrew sends me the armor. That's why one of my bigger projects is actually trying to replicate the cosplay armor that's on the Tannis photo shoots, and that's all made out of foam too. So when you look at that armor that Tannis is wearing and the armor that the other characters will be wearing, it's quite literally just flexible foam, which is good because you don't want real armor. That'd be freaking heavy, you know, to walk around with that. Way harder to get past security at the con as well. So I also made guns because in Boston and actually Massachusetts, if you have a weapon like this, you actually have to have an orange tip on it. And the conference won't let you bring weapons in that look too realistic even. So my Deadpool guns are basically, they look like handguns, and they're hard plastic too, and they also fire pellets. So they're like completely not something you can bring.
Not okay. Yeah.
So I actually just made like these foam cutouts didn't even have trigger spots, and they just say BAM and pew pew on the side and stuff like that. So when you look at my pictures, you'll see me holding these stupid guns that say like pew pew on the side, and those are my weapons. And actually, I totally get it too, because you've got 60,000 people there. You've got a lot of people walking around with things that look like weapons. So the security and the police kind of have to behave like every weapon could be real. And the orange tip, like I said to them, I was like, really, the orange tip doesn't do anything, does it? Because like, as a cop, you have to basically treat a weapon that looks like a weapon, regardless of what color the tip is painted, because otherwise everyone just paints their Glocks orange, you know, and away you go. So
yeah, WizardCon, I came around a corner and there was a guy in full, like he looked just like he'd walked out of Iraq, and he had an A4 hanging on his side, and I was just like, oh, like it freaked me out. And then I realized what it was. But Oregon has weird open carry laws. I mean, it's a private event, so you can't carry. I mean, I would assume their rules were around that, but yeah, I really appreciate that kind of rule. And it just seemed to me in poor taste. Like, what's really the point of cosplaying? You know, that it's not interesting. So
yeah. Well, yeah, you see guys, like I saw some guys like they're wearing full tactical gear or ghillie suits and whatnot. Like, I guess you're cosplaying from Call of Duty or something like that, but it's not really an interesting cosplay, you know.
Not to me, anyway. Yeah.
Not, but the rule of thumb too, when you're at one of these events, I need to play League of Legends because apparently everybody else does. But if you don't recognize the cosplay, it's from League of Legends. That's just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I had a ton of fun too. There was a big photo op for Smash Brothers. Mario and whatnot, but there's a guy like that had the perfect plant costume with like the head and all that, and he even had a pot. It was actually kind of cool too, because he actually could flip up the pot, and he had like drinks, and he had like his wallet and everything in there inside the pot, so he could carry.
Oh, nice.
Because superhero costumes do not have near enough pockets. It's something you'll learn when you cosplay. But I crashed that one as Deadpool. Like, I'm in the background, like giving like Samus from Metroid the ear fingers, and I'm like trying to kiss Princess Peach, you know, and stuff like that. And eventually, I just slid right in the front and just did the sexy Deadpool pose on the ground in front of all of them. They declared Deadpool to be DLC, and it was okay. So
they didn't kick you out. Yeah. How Michael ended up in the security office.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, the Master Chief showed up too, so we had everybody. Eventually, just became just this giant picture for PAX. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. So.
Highly recommended. Cool.
Yeah, totally. I recommend it. I think if you could get a chance to go to a big Comic Con or something like PAX, because there's one in the South, there's one Central, and there's one West. They are just a ton of fun, even just to go and people watch, just to see all the crazy stuff people are wearing. You know, it's And some like there was a guy who did like Mega Man, and it was like a perfect Mega Man cosplay. You could barely walk because the boots are so massive, but and inflatable dinosaurs, people running around with inflatable dinosaur suits and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I felt that actually when we went to WizardCon, which was the first one I'd been to, it really felt like they should have given some kind of discount to the cosplayers, or they should have like paid them to be there because they were the best thing about the conference. I mean, like your booths and their like the organized stuff was like okay, but yeah, everything else was fan driven, like even the panels and yeah.
Yeah, actually at PAX, the way it works in the Boston Convention Center is there's the big convention floor, and then there's like a couple of hallways that encircle it. And that's where all the panels are and whatnot. And basically, you could get in there. They checked your badges when you went to the convention floor, and they checked badges when you went to the panels, but they didn't check your badges to go in the hallways. So you actually could have just gone in and just checked out cosplayers and not paid. Actually, I think a lot of
People
the
do that.
cosplayers didn't buy tickets either.
People do that in the UK because you can go to these places and, there's other things going on in the other halls, but there's a main concourse. And the cosplayers and the photographers, they just walk up and down all day, just, talking and taking photos and all that. And they don't even bother going into the convention. Why
my second day, I spent 16 hours just wandering around taking pictures with people. I went through the expo hall a couple of times doing it as well, but I spent way more time just out in the halls, just hanging out with people and taking crazy pictures and stuff like that.
Where's the next Aeon 14 book? I don't know. Michael's at a conference.
Yeah.
Like, this new addiction is set in.
Yep, totally. I don't have that many planned. I want to try and I might get to Dallas Comic Con. Amy and I are going to Jordan Con, but that's not this kind of conference. That's more of Jordan Con is for the Wheel of Time books, just so anyone knows.
It's a lot of epic fantasy kind of style cosplay there.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just cosplay Deadpool the whole time I'm there too, just for fun. Why not?
I mean, everyone would love it. It's like Deadpool's kind of that one character that can cross through anything.
Maybe I need like a foam sword. Like a
That's what I was going to say.
Fantasy sword or something like that.
Oh, you just need to get one of the Aes Sedai shawls.
Sure. Yeah. Someone probably sells them there, right?
Yeah. There should be a vendor.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'll just bring Deadpool and I'll just cosplay Deadpool running around the Wheel of Time convention.
You need to decide which Aja you're a part of.
Which what?
Well, which color Aja?
Oh right, yeah. It's been so long since I've read these books. I need to read like a Cliff Notes version to catch back up again.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a good Wikipedia article that would give you the basics.
I'm gonna have to do that. We're not gonna get to our topic at all, our sexuality topic at all.
Probably not.
That's fine though.
Amy's just ready to drop knowledge on Michael. Like, if you're going to be there, you need to do this.
I'm going to grab on to Amy.
I will admit that I haven't read the entire series. I only read the first 4 books.
Oh, I'm ahead of you. I read to 7.
Mm-mm. No, but my husband's a huge mega fan, so he's filled me in on the overall arc.
Ah, that's your ticket. But it does actually have...
I used to be really into the epic fantasy stuff, and then I read Ender's Game, and then I read Dune, and then it was just all sci-fi from that point on. So I got completely distracted.
Yeah, I had a similar thing where mine was more Anne McCaffrey because I read the Dragon Riders books, and then I realized these things are kind of sci-fi. And then I read her sci-fi books. I'm like, I need more sci-fi. Mm-hmm. I mean, I still read fantasy. Like I read the Brandon Sanderson Shadows Born series, and I read a lot of us like that. But my go-to is sci-fi, and it really is Anne McCaffrey's fault. Everything's Anne McCaffrey's fault.
Well, for me, Robert Jordan was a great example of I think I read through book 3 as they were actually coming out, and then there started being more time between books, and it was like, I'm done. Forgot. It's just you lose momentum as you're progressing.
After book 5, I think it was after book 4 or book 5, he wrote a Western, like a Civil War Western style series, I think.
Did he? Oh, okay.
That's the big problem about kind of traditional is there's such a gap between books that you end up actively looking for other things, and then as you say, you read a book which leads to another genre, and then you never go back, and
then you're gone.
Well, that's why I'd read a lot of older books, because the series were finished and I could read the whole thing. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Someday Aeon 14 will be finished. People will be able to read the whole thing in one shot.
Oh my gosh!
Well, one shot.
Here's your decade-long project of reading all these books.
I know.
There you go.
It'll never be finished. Okay. Well, speaking of things that continue to broaden Aeon 14. How's that for a transition?
I thought there was a segue coming there.
I know. Let's talk about Anomaly at Circa. So Andrew, was this original? Like, how did this idea come about? Whose idea originally was this?
Okay.
Yes.
So this came about basically from Bob's Bar. So for those that don't know, this is a anthology series that was it was Jonathan Braz's idea, wasn't it, Michael? It was him. He pitched it, didn't he, to Michael Anderle and Craig and yourself when you were visiting that museum?
It was at 2 conferences ago in Vegas. We were all at the Soviet Threat Museum at the Air Force Base in North Las Vegas. Because Craig actually used to Craig Martell, the author who writes with Michael Anderle and also writes his own stuff as well, used to be the world's leading authority on Soviet tactical helmets. And he would actually train people on these helmets and in a variety of features they had and whatnot. So he actually used to work every now and then, teach classes at the Soviet Threat Museum. And back then it was like super classified because it actually has like MiGs and tanks and all sorts of stuff inside this space. All their weapons that they had back in the 70s and 80s were all there and whatnot. And now basically if you can get onto the base, you could walk into the Threat Museum. It's basically, there's like a spot where you're supposed to put your cell phones, but no one appeared to be putting their cell phones there. So we got to go in there and check it out and sit in some MiGs and stuff like that and have a good time. And just sort of on the way back, we were back out to the cars. We were talking about, different collaborations we could do. And I guess, was it Callahan's Bar? There's like another one that's...
Yeah, Callahan's Bar is the famous one. There are others like it.
Yeah, so Brazzy suggested that we could do something like that, but instead of it just being one author writing it all, because I think that's just one author that writes that.
Yes,
we would actually all do something new. And so a lot of times with authors, we do these anthologies where we all just put a story in an anthology, and it's sort of a way to cross-market our books to new readers. But we thought, what if it was our characters telling the stories to one another? It was an entirely new way of doing an anthology, and I think a lot more engaging and interesting as well, because you actually get to see these characters like Andrew's Amanda, Tanis Richards, Bethany Ann, from Michael Anderle's books, all talking with each other and interrupting each other's stories and whatnot as well. So it was a ton of fun.
So that's where Bob's Bar came from, and so I kind of weaseled my way into the book by offering to do the cover for free. So that's how I got in. So I don't know if that's a big secret, but anyway, there you go. And I've been doing some covers for you, Michael, for a little bit by that point. And so naturally, because we've been talking, I think our characters in the book just got on quite well. And at the end of the book, I added in a little comment from Amanda just saying, if I can find a way to visit you, I will. And then after that book was done, I basically, contacted Michael and said, look, is there a way we could do this and actually have, our characters meet again? And because I really enjoyed the kind of working with these other authors, having the characters interact. It was great fun, and I wanted to do more of it. So that was the genesis of the series. And so I asked Michael. He said, "Yeah, sure, let's do this." And very shortly after that, I asked Barry Hutchison as well, who was also in that first Bob's Bar book. And he was like, yeah, sure, we could do this. And so that led to the genesis of the idea of writing a series where Amanda is jumping around to other universes, meeting these other characters, and that's where it came from.
Yeah, I have to admit, at first I was a little bit hesitant. I'm like, how are we going to do magic in my hard sci-fi universe?
I was, yeah.
But we figured it out. And actually, a reader contacted me this morning. He said he was worried about how magic would work, but he says he likes it because in Aeon 14, some of the characters are ascending. I'm dealing with multi-dimensional physics a lot because we know that there are at least 13 dimensions in our universe, possibly 26 or 23, depending on which version of supersymmetrical string theory you subscribe to. And so and we know that there are other types of energy, and we also in our universe that we can't yet detect, and we know that there's antiparticles that that could contain high amounts of energy and whatnot. So basically, you could say all of that's just magic, and that somehow Amanda.
And I mean that's within my universe. To explain it to anyone that's not read the books is watching this, what the characters in my universe call magic. Is actually them is certain people are born with the ability to utilize an energy, an extra universal energy, which makes things happen, and that is basically it. And it just sounds so similar to what Tannis is going through in the later books and what she can do, that I thought it was a decent fit, and I think Michael also seemed to think that it worked.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not too kind of esoteric. It's not kind of, you know, some of the magic you might see in epic fantasy or anything like that. It's kind of almost tied to certain quantum, you know, superstring, all these kind of, you know, far science kind of things that it kind of worked. So, but I was worried, I have to say.
Well,
it's Aeon 14. I read the books myself. I love them, and I had to say there were several times when I was like, are Michael's fans just going to go, no?
Well, it's like in the tradition of any comic crossover, you're always the fun is in the characters interacting, not so much trying to make, like if you try and make everything fit exactly, it's always going to probably not irritate, but not work for somebody. But that's not the point, you know. And I think it's pretty cool that you were both just willing to do this, like to say yes to this sort of project and like give it a shot, you know.
Well, the other thing too, where like my character's like, wait, because I can never remember which is plural and which is singular, Magi or Magus.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I get messed up because Magi is actually the plural.
So Magi is plural. Magus is singular, but because it's got the S at the end, everyone.
Also because when I see your book covers, there's Amanda and it says Star Magi. So I think, okay, she is a Star Magi, but she's not. She's a Star Magus.
Yes.
So.
Like octopus.
It's backwards, Andrew.
Octopi. Yes.
It's backwards, and my characters get confused in the book. They can't remember which one's which either. So like the one's like, well, let's get we got all the other magus out there. It's like, no, I think that they're magi, and she's a magus. And someone's like, I'm calling her a sorceress. You know, what one of them ends up doing. Because that's where the fun is, like trying to play on these little differences and whatnot between the different worlds.
I love conversations like that too, because that's how life is. You know,
yes.
You run across things all the time. They're like, what? It's like an acronym. That acronym doesn't make me.
I'm doing one thing I didn't mention. One of the things I got to at PAX is I got to meet the team from Two Dog Studio who are making the game that I'm going to be writing for. That game's called Destiny's Sword. The closed beta is going to be out this year, and the open beta will be out next year. So I'm going to be doing a lot of the writing in the. Originally, I was just going to write some stories, but I think they actually want me to write more of the game and help them actually with their universe building even. So they're actually flying down to meet with me in a couple of weeks for 2 days. But as I said to them, in their stuff deals with a lot of heavy issues with the characters, because you actually have to deal with the fact that you're putting your characters in combat and their backgrounds, and like one of the characters becomes addicted to drugs to stay sharp and on the field and whatnot, and you have to actually like deal with all of this stuff and build cohesion. And if you actually can't get your people's shit together, they actually can't go on missions even. Which I always kind of wish happened in other games like Mass Effect. Like I could have some of my characters that were just messed up, but you put them on a mission, they were just fine, you know. So this game is not like that. This game will actually affect their performance in game. So if you don't help them deal with their issues, like a character could freeze up in combat or something like that. But I said to them, your dialogue is great, but people try to make each other laugh when people are depressed. And we say stupid shit to try and get each other to smile when someone's down and stuff like that. So I said, we really have to get that in there. Like, I understand you're trying to like really promote the seriousness of this, but I know from experience that when the chips are down and people are like really stressed out, someone's going to crack a joke, you know, to try and lighten the mood a little bit. And that's actually an important part of how we operate together as people. So I think that'll be a fun thing to do, to try and figure out where I can interject humor into this game and make the characters say stupid shit, you know. And sometimes it'll go badly, because sometimes you crack a joke at the wrong time and people are like, that was the dumbest thing.
Absolutely. I've read the last book I read was a thriller by an author that we know, but he's writing it under a pen name, so I'm not going to say his name. But it's a really dark child kidnapping kind of story, but there's a lot of humor through it, because these people are dealing with this, but these cops naturally have this kind of into play, and so you get them saying a lot of stupid stuff, and that's life. That's what people do.
Yeah.
So in Circa, there's a lot of that as well. So they're always talking about it, and
there's this. I think
jokes.
one of my favorite scenes I got to write in that book was the scene where the pirates think they captured Jessica. And Jessica's like, no, I've captured you. And they get this argument about who's captured who at this point.
Yeah, Jessica stood there. She's in binders, and it's like, I've captured you. What are you talking about? And they're like, what? They're pointing guns at her and stuff. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they're like, you're unarmed. She's like, I'm not unarmed.
I'm so not unarmed.
Yeah, exactly.
So how? Okay, so we had the idea that we wanted to do this. We wanted to work together, and we had the shared kind of universes. How did you? Just what kind of story should we tell? What is the thing that we'd like to say if we're going to butt these two universes up together?
So I mean, because I'm publishing it, and it's going to be a series, and it's going to lead on to other collaborations with other authors, and probably hopefully another one with Michael, which will involve Tanis. I had to kind of come up with a kind of thread to run through them, so that it wasn't just completely unrelated adventures. There had to be a kind of a story there. So I came up with some antagonists, which I named Reavers, it's these guys that are jumping between universes and stealing things that are useful to them. So it's either advanced technology or people, or they're trading things and that kind of thing. Reavers, because pirates, it's another name for pirates, Reavers. And so that's what I came up with. And so there's some Reavers who have gone to Circa Station to nick something. And Amanda and Jessica and Cheeky and co need to go and find out what it is and stop them.
Yeah, so once Andrew had that basically we were dealing with a heist of sorts. We worked out what it would be, what the station's response would be, what kind of people we'd run into and stuff like that, and then plotted it all out. And Andrew did the first swath at laying out what the chapters would be like and the things the characters went through, and it changed up a little bit as we started writing and whatnot. But it was actually, once we got going on it, it was pretty quick. It only took us like maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, it didn't take long. It was, I mean, I've never collaborated before. This is the first time I've ever collaborated on the story, so this was completely new to me. But it seemed to work really well. So I came up with a first pass, a really basic kind of 2-paragraph idea of what, the story should be. And then I handed it to Michael, and then he added to it, and then it came back and forth, and it eventually got long enough that we're able to go, okay, let's break this up into chapters.
Yep.
And that led naturally to the writing alternate chapters thing. And it just kind of, it's quite organic.
Yeah.
The way it kind of came together.
That's what I was just wondering. So writing organically, were there any points where you were working on off an outline, but maybe Andrew, you did something where like, we're going this way, and then Michael's like, well, that's not what we planned. We're doing this, or did Michael do that to you? Yeah,
this was interesting because I know how Michael writes. So he's a pantser, whereas I'm a plotter. So he tends to have a sentence for a book, and then he just writes. Whereas I like to have mine plotted out.
Yeah.
So
my plot for Rika Rising was a queen will rise. That was the whole plot. That was also the blurb on Amazon too.
I was worried. I have to say, I was like, is he going to freak out because I'm going to kind of come up with this plot? But I did say, look, at any point, if you think the characters wouldn't do what we've written down and they go off on a tangent, just do it. Just go ahead and just write what you think would happen, and we'll steer it where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So.
I think the only time where we had to make a bit of an adjustment, and we recognized very early on we'd have to do it, was originally we had the characters kind of just hanging out and partying more. But because Amanda knew as soon as she came that she was actually, originally Amanda was just going to pop over and see what was going on. But then we changed this so that Amanda actually sort of had a mission that we had to get them down to brass tacks a little bit faster because of that. But that was really the only thing that had to change. Everything else stayed pretty much on plot.
Yeah, I mean the things I remember that you added in was the Alma pirate.
Yeah.
That was added in, and I think it was like tying stuff into the previous book and what had happened with the tanks and stuff. And
there was a bit of that. That was just we knew that we had to make a red herring, a couple of red herrings for what they're looking for. So I was able to supply those, and then we had to come up with a reason why Jessica wouldn't immediately know where Amanda was at one point. So we had to add in some stuff there, and that we might have changed a little bit just to make it so that it was plausible. But it really wasn't that. I think the one part that was hardest was like every now and then you'd think that you were doing, it's like, okay, this is my chapter. I'm like, crap, this is like a major conversation with Amanda. I don't know what Amanda would say. So some of that stuff was like, okay, I'm going to rough out what I want to say, and then Andrew would do a pass, and I go over it again. But there really wasn't too much of that. It went pretty smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, I remember towards the middle of the book or so, there was a point where I was like, I have no idea how this is going to go. And I got to that point, I was like, well, this involves Jessica, so much, and I don't know how she'd react. So I just stopped and just handed it to Michael and just said, right, I don't know what happens. Can you write this bit?
And there's some parts we had to rewrite dialogue, obviously, too, to make it so we're responding the way they would, and obviously referencing their own past and whatnot.
Yeah, so, I mean, every time Michael wrote a chapter, I would then go back through it and correct Amanda's voice, and I think Michael presumably did the same to all my stuff as well. So
yeah,
I've done this before where you actually try and mess up the other writer as much as possible. So you just keep injecting, weird, crazy stuff, and then make them respond to it, and they do the same thing to you, and it can be really fun.
The other time I did something similar to this, because normally when I do the co-author projects, we plot it all out, or we have an idea what's going on, and then they write the rough draft, and then I kind of go over top of it, and then they go over top and back and forth. But the one time where it was a little bit more back and forth was with you, James, with the stuff with Brit.
Oh yeah.
Mainly in Lissa's run and Lissa's flight. I wrote most of the Brit stuff in those books.
Which I think was really valuable because you recognized that, hey, we need to flesh this character out more, and had some good ideas about doing that. So I think that worked really well.
Yeah, and then she became a much bigger part of the story actually because of that too. Because there was so much more. You understood her perspective a lot more than you did otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Because Amy sat there very quietly for so long. How are you finding collaborating with Michael? Just to bring you in.
It's been great so far. I mean, we chat pretty much every day for a good amount of time. So when I have any questions, he's been really great about answering them. And so how did it start? So pretty much you designed this entire system for me, like years ago back when you were doing it, because he was trying to entice me to write Aeon 14. He's like, well, she likes Dune type politics, so let me make a Dune political type.
And then I've read.
That's when I had to agree to participate, right? So
makes that strong order.
So then he said, so I think that this character of Terry would be a good one to bring over as the main character, and so he sort of kept her relatively open and just available for me to do with her what I want. So when we started scoping it out, we knew that she has to go back to the Serenity system at some point, and then we need to kind of figure out what that's going to be. There's going to be some political component, but there should be something else too. So then we just started bouncing some ideas back and forth about what the other characters could be and how they might be interacting and what the overall scope of it would be, and just did a few passes back and forth. And I think ended up with a page and a half outline with some of the general plot threads and character interactions in there. So I have now taken that and split it out into more of a chronological sequence. So I tend to be more of a plotter as well. So I don't have it broken out by chapter, but I have the sequence of events that will unfold, and some of the key scenes that would need to transpire. So I'm taking a first pass, and it's going to be kind of hilarious when Michael looks at it, because I have all of these places where I just have a placeholder of like thingy and then like gizmo, and all of those things need to be named, and so we'll need to work out what the tech for it will be. So it's all just in these conversations that have complete nonsense in them right now, but it'll just be a binary marketplace thing of figuring out.
So Terry takes out the thingy and goes to Doodah.
Yeah. Quite literally, there's an entire conversations talking about like, doing a trade between like thingies and super awesome things. It's like, we'll probably need to just keep a copy of that draft to share as a hilarious.
We probably should do
that's
that,
got to
yeah.
go on the Aeon 14 group. That's
Yeah.
gotta
Well, I do the same thing because if I sit there and I'll hit a stop like a ship's name and I want it to be awesome, but then that will slow me down for like a day to think of that. So I'll just like ship name, and then
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, I got to rename it anyway, so
potentially yes.
That's not true. I've renamed very few of the ships. The only one I think the one I renamed originally in your series, Heartbridge.
Oh yeah, yep.
Was actually named after an actual healthcare company.
Yes.
Turned out, so we probably can't make our villains an actual.
We probably
healthcare
don't
company.
want to get sued. Okay. Yeah. Well, one of the things I think that's interesting is that all four of us obviously are comfortable with collaboration, and you talk to some writers who are like, "Nope, can't do it. Hate that."
really?
Is there any? Well, I've definitely talked to people that I think writing for them is a form of egomania.
Oh, right. Okay.
You look at like screenwriting or other collaborative type, like game writing is kind of like making a movie, or it's a huge collaboration, right? And you have to, you can't be super precious about your work because potentially someone's going to change it, right? And some people can't deal with that.
Yeah.
How successful they're going to be, I couldn't tell you, but how, like, what have you learned from collaboration, or why do you enjoy it? Or I mean, even so, Andrew, since this is your first collaboration, like, do you see it as something you want to continue doing, or you're like,
yes, okay. I mean, I had an absolute blast doing this. I mean, I really wasn't sure how it would go coming into it, given that I'd never done it before. The only taste of collaboration I'd had was Bob's Bar, and that's collaboration on a certain level, but I mean, you're still writing your own story. So this was a different level of that. But I had a really, really fun time, and I am incredibly proud of the final work and the way it is. And I mean, some of the chapters, I love some of the things that Michael's written in that book. The one which stands out to me that I really enjoyed, it's towards the end of the book and it's a scene on Sabrina, and there's a lot of action. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but I was reading that and I was like, my heart was thumping because it was just really intense, kind of real kind of action beat. And I just loved that scene. I love that so much.
This book actually has only the second combat sequence that ever happens aboard Sabrina. The only other time there's actually ever fight on board Sabrina is in Destiny Lost when they first capture when the pirates first capture Sarah. And after that, they never actually fight on Sabrina's decks. So this is actually only the second time it's ever happened.
And it's incredibly intense, that scene. And, it's because of what Sabrina's dealing with and having to fight. It's an incredibly intense scene. And it's great fun.
It's all from Sabrina's point of view, too, which is kind of a neat thing. So it's
point of view.
I figured, when I was writing, I'm like, well, I could write from one of the character standpoints, but the one who's really most invested in protecting this shit is Sabrina herself.
Right.
And Sabrina is not unarmed, as it turns out. So
she's definitely not unarmed.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Pretty deadly.
Yeah. So I had a really fun time. I really enjoyed it. I hope Michael did as well, because I would like to do it again at some point with Michael. But I also am going to be continuing the series, and the next book is going to be a collaboration between me and Barry Hutchison of Space Team fame. And I believe he's writing the first chapter at the moment. He's got some family issues, so it might take a while to get there, but it's going to be a lot of fun. That one's going to be called Space Oddities, and it's going to be more of a comedy than anything else, because if you've read Space Team, then he writes sci-fi comedy. So this is going to be a lot of fun. There's still dealing with, it's the same bad guys. So it's the Reavers going to the Space Team universe to steal something. So it's still continuing the thread, but the tone is going to be much more comedic. And then to completely turn that on its head, when I do the one with Michael Anderle, it's going to be completely not comedy, probably be much more action and a bit more hardcore kind of fighting and stuff going on in that one. So it's going to be an interesting series because each one, the tone is going to be very different.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see if the readers, if the Aeon 14 readers then read the Space Team one and then read the Cathurian Gambit one. It's going to be really interesting to see whether people stay with the series. So it's going to be a complete experiment. I mean, I've got no clue how it's going to go. So we will see.
Yeah, it could be that people read just the one in the series they're used to reading and don't go through the whole thing, or
maybe.
It might be people come through and they're like, you know what, I want to know more. I'm going to start back at the beginning, and that's the hope. Obviously, there's some, if Michael Angeli's fans or Barry's fans are into it, that they'll start back at the beginning. But at the same time, they're written, I think, so that won't be necessary.
Yeah, I think people could just jump in and read episode 2 and not read 1 and 3. I think people could do that if they really wanted to, because especially if they're just following Barry's stories, then they can just, jump into that and jump back out again, and they don't need to read anything else. But obviously the hope is, because we're doing this to kind of cross-pollinate and get readers interested in our works, so that hopefully some of Barry's readers are going to go, you know what, I'm going to read some of these others, and they're going to read book 1 and hopefully going to go, you know what, I really like Jessica and Cheeky and the Sabrina, so I'm going to dive into Aeon 14 and kind of then start reading all of those books, and that's the hope. So
that's the hope.
I was just thinking about how this is, the expertise that we have here makes this possible. Being able to basically do something with the cost there is just your abundance as a writer. Like, you're willing to just do something different, and I think that's a big part of collaboration as well. Is that I'm just willing to try something new. I love to write. I want to tell a story. I'm not toiling away in a cave on my my thing that I can only bring out once every 10 years or something. Which is it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
Barry was really, really keen, because he comes from I don't know if you know, but he comes from a traditional writing background. So he's written for HarperCollins and some of these big 5 publishers doing, children's books. And it's such a, he has so little say in what he could do with those books. They go through so he'll come up. He was telling me, because I saw him at the London Book Fair, and he was talking to me about this, and he was saying that, he'd come up with an idea, and he'd send it off to HarperCollins, and they'd come back saying, yeah, I love it, it's great, we're going to talk about it at our next marketing meeting. So they'd go to the marketing meeting, they'd talk about it, and then they'd come back to him and say, we love the idea, it's really good, but you know what? You know what's big right now? Cats. Cats are everywhere. Can you put some cats in this? Or can you change this character to a cat? And then he has to change it, and then obviously the book doesn't come out till a year later, and then suddenly cats aren't hot anymore. And so, it's dealing with that, to kind of switching to being an indie and going, you know what, I can write whatever I like. I can collaborate with these people. The book's out in a month.
That was a terrible example, by the way, because I'm pretty sure that cats are never going to be out.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
The internet is actually powered by cats.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need fusion for the future. We just need some way to harness the cat energy on the internet.
I know. Well, that's kind of the difference between, by committee, because I guess both are a type of collaboration, but here this is just 2 authors that want to work together that can do that, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to go through this whole process to develop the thing. And then also, if it flies, awesome. If it doesn't fly, let's move on to something else, and you have the freedom to do that.
Yeah, whereas in the trad model, what you were talking about, you've got like a dozen people who've invested a year, so if something doesn't work, and they're also, because they're much less risk, they're much more risk averse. They don't want to take any risks on things that might not work, because of the amount of effort that goes into it. So
and printing 10,000 print copies, and
exactly.
Yeah, and having a massive building in the central London, which employing so many people in it, they've got to pay their bills. So
yeah, totally.
In the U.S., taking the loss on those 10,000 copies is like their business model. That's why they all immediately go to remainder.
Oh,
But I digress.
I was actually going to mention something that's can I mention it? I think I can mention this. So I've actually signed a contract
Oh,
with
yeah.
a publisher to do 3 books. It's a small press publisher. If anyone's read Rhett Bruno's Titanborn books, he's the one that runs the publishing company. He's just started it up recently, but he's done exceedingly well in audiobooks. And he has a standing agreement with Audible Studios, which of course is owned by Amazon, that they will, anything that he brings to them, basically they're going to put out, and you get a much bigger marketing engine behind that, because basically Audible Studios is willing to get good content and to market it a bunch just so because they make money off the subscription, and they want to make the subscription enticing to people. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to write a trilogy that's going to be, so for everybody who's listening, chances are you're Aeon 14 fans. This is going to be Aeon 14, not Aeon 14. It's going to be 100% an Aeon 14 story. It's just not going to say that anywhere on it. Because I'm trying to think of like how I would write this. I'm like, I don't want to build a whole new setting. I know this setting. I know the technology. I know everything. And quite honestly, I'm pretty sure I've got it all right. So no hubris at all involved whatsoever. But yeah, so it's going to be, this one's actually going to have a male protagonist, and they're going to be outlaws. So I'm doing something very different from what I've done before. And the first book is actually going to be about a robbery in space. So that's going to be that story. And actually, I don't know when they're going to, this is actually the funny thing. I have no idea when they're going to come out. I know when I have to deliver the first book. I don't know when it's going to get released. Because when you do things with Audible Studios, the ebook and the audiobook come out at the same time. Whereas normally you release the ebook and then the audio comes out 2 or 3 months later after the narrator has a chance to go through it and narrate it, and then the quality control and all that. So this will be a bit of a different experience for me.
Are you delivering the whole trilogy, or one book at a time?
I'm going to deliver it one at a time. Part of it will depend on Audible, because sometimes Audible wants to sign the contract for the whole trilogy at once. Mm-hmm. And then they provide the whole advance at once. And I think if they do that, then they want dates for everything. I don't know if I have to deliver it all at once or if I just have to meet my dates. So I guess we'll see how that goes. But that's going to be a fun adventure.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. That might push back one of their Aeon 14 series a little bit, one I've been wanting to write, which is called Althea's Raiders, which is ironically also another band of outlaws.
Yeah, I was going to say.
but that one's all female. That one actually involves universe hopping and time travel and stuff like that. So that one will be a little bit different, but which is actually kind of neat, because my plan for Althea's Raiders is one of the reasons why Amanda coming to Aeon 14 works, because Aeon 14, I've always intended for Aeon 14 to support the multiverse, so that things actually cross between universes. And on top of that, readers don't know this yet, but they've actually already, other than Amanda, they've already met characters that are not from the Aeon 14 universe originally. So there's stuff like that lingering out there.
I think I know who one of those is.
Spoilers.
What? I think I know who one of those is.
You do? Interesting.
I'm not saying anything here. But
Spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. No spoilers.
No spoilers.
We probably don't need to talk about a regular topic then. I don't think we have.
I think that we have now talked for like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is okay. That's fine.
Yeah, it's cool.
Even the original sexuality show was like one of those that just kept boiling in the background, and like, do we have the guts to talk about this? I don't know.
Yep.
No one has outright complained yet, I don't think. Have you received
so.
any long angry emails?
No.
Good.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone who reads these books would complain about that topic.
Yeah.
It's
I think that's kind of weeded out.
Yeah.
That is
well.
true.
Let's see. I guess we talked about what the future holds for the crossovers. What else did I want to ask about?
I was going to ask, how's the feedback been so far, Michael? That have you heard from anyone about the book?
Yeah, the early readers actually all really liked it.
Cool.
And one of them said that he wasn't sure how if he would enjoy a book that had magic in it, but he said it worked out really well, so he was happy about that. So I think I've got about 10 people that have given really positive feedback, saying they enjoyed the story, they thought it was great, they thought the dialogue was a lot of fun, and the action was fun too. So
awesome. Could have put in the preface the Arthur C. Clarke quote about any sufficient advance in technology appears to be magic, or however that goes.
Is it just vengeful for magic?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So if you have not checked out Anomaly at Circa, check it out. And also, if you have not join the Facebook group, come talk to us on Facebook. It's Facebook/group/Aeon14 fans. I think,
Yep.
if I got that right. Yep. Cool. Anything else that we wanted to mention that I am forgetting?
You mentioned about a question about anyone excited about current recommendation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you want to ask the question?
I think you brought it up. Andrew's going to ask the question, and he's going to.
Okay, I'll ask the question. Sure. Is anyone excited about a current recommendation, like a book or a show? What you've been watching, reading, listening to? Michael, go first.
What have I been doing lately, other than cosplay and writing books? Actually, Jill and I we're now on season 3 of Winona Earp, which we enjoy quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's a show. The premise of the show is that a demon cursed Wyatt Earp, so that whenever an Earp heir dies, everyone that he killed rises from the dead, and the next heir has to kill them all over again. Which is pretty cool. It's an interesting show for a number of reasons. One, it's got a much more female heavy cast. The main characters are Winona Earp and her sister, and Doc Holliday also is in the series, which is fantastic. The guy that plays Doc Holliday is great. He has like the super stash and everything like that, and he's still alive is the idea in the series. So that's a lot of fun. And the other cool thing is that it's actually filmed not that far from where I grew up in Canada. So it's kind of neat. Like, I recognize the setting. I'm like, this is Alberta. Like, I recognize where this is taking place. And on top of that, it's filmed in winter, which is just kind of cool to have like a TV show that is in the winter, because most TV shows are always done in summer, but this one they do in the winter. There's snow on the ground and the characters are in parkas running around, chasing the bad guys. So it's kind of an interesting twist. It's got a lot of interesting twists because of that. So it's a fun show. Cool. So I highly recommend that. And then we also just finished watching The Last Ship. Season 5 of The Last Ship was a little bit low budget. For whatever reason, TNT is like, we're going to give you like $5 to produce this series. But The Last Ship is a series of a TV series based on a ship that is in the Arctic, a U.S. Navy destroyer. It's in the Arctic, and it's performing some maneuvers and whatnot. And those maneuvers require to be off the comms while it is. And when they come back from the Arctic and they get back on comms, 7/8 of humanity is dead from a plague, and they are basically the last organized naval group in the world. And no one is sick, so they actually have like the ability to do something, and it's their job to find the cure. And then the subsequent seasons are actually all about how the world recovers, and how nations reform and stuff like that, and the struggles that go on with that. So it's actually a really cool series. If you like sort of like the old World War II submarine movies and stuff like that, this is really great, because a lot of times like they don't have satellite hookups and whatnot, so they're not able to use satellite to see where the enemy is. They're over the horizon, we can't see them, So it's got a lot more fun, like more like hiding behind islands, and
What's it called again?
The Last Ship.
The Last
Is that
Ship.
online
Okay.
anywhere, or?
You can buy it on Prime. I don't know if it's free anywhere on any subscriptions or not. TNT, for whatever reason, does not really put a lot of their content out there on Hulu or Netflix or anything.
Jerks.
Amy?
I guess that. Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead, Amy.
I am working my way through the Love, Death, and Robots anthology series on Netflix right now, and really enjoying it. It's very graphic, so if you have a queasy stomach with blood and gore or with sexual content, I would not recommend it at all. But I have really been enjoying the just short story in film format and the different animation styles that have been used in it. It's really good.
My understanding wasn't that originally going to be a reboot of Heavy Metal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and also graphic.
Yes.
Yeah. But
was that what you were going to bring up, Andrew? It sounds like that.
Have you two watched that series? Because it's really good.
It's on my
Not
list.
yet, I need to. Yeah, it's on my list as well.
Oh, it's so good. Really good.
I was going to bring up something kind of egg-headed, but
Okay.
It's a book that,
James.
I know Michael's like talking about rebuilding nations and whatnot. So this book is called American Nations: The 11 Regional Countries of the United States, or regional areas, I think. And it was written in I want to say 2007, but it's about the idea that we don't think of the United States often as it actually was, founded by multiple nations that came over here that established their own regional cultures. And then even those cultures, like say the Northeastern Yankees, sent people to the West Coast and established what he calls the left coast. And then how much time the Spanish spent in this region and established what he calls El Norte, which is, a good portion of Mexico up into California and Nevada. But if you're trying at all to understand like our current politics, it's a great sort of primer in the way people think and how it persists to this day. And you can see it in politics, especially when it comes to like Yankee ideas about community and building schools and churches. And the first thing they always built was a church and then a school, and then the community provides the school, but the community also demands a lot of people that are part of the community.
It's really funny about that, but I live in the
Yeah.
Northeast and we don't consider ourselves to be Yankees.
That like he calls them Yankees, I guess. He calls it Yankeedom, but that's just the title he provides.
I know, it's annoying. It's a pet peeve up here. It's like, we're not Yankees. Yankees are people from New York.
Well, he calls New York New Amsterdam, and then so that's primarily the Dutch idea where anything goes as long as you support commerce. And then you get into Appalachia, and then you get into the South, and ideas about individual rights, and that the community doesn't really need to provide anything except the individual. Don't trample on the rights of the individual. But it's a fascinating book, and it's funny because in reading the Amazon reviews, it really feels like as long as you kind of agree with his premise, you think the book is with different parts of your region, then you support the book's ideas. And if he says something a little too close to the truth about your region, you're kind of like, yeah, this guy's full of crap. But it's really made me think about it. It's kind of funny because he was like, what would the U.S. be like if we didn't have the southern states? We'd basically be like Canada, because the French utopianism that came over and ideas about the way to form this new world, which even persists in like Cajun culture in Louisiana to this day, which is kind of encapsulated by the South. But it's a fascinating book, and it was I listened to it on Audible. And it was really like you start to see a lot of this coded language in politics as well, and the different things, at least in U.S. politics, but also just the way that European nations brought a lot of sort of distilled ideas to the U.S. that then have persisted to this day, where it might look like Europe has moved on, and actually progressed in ways that the U.S. kind of refuses to do. So it's pretty fascinating. I would recommend that.
One little interesting anecdotal part of that is, so I live 3 houses down from me is the city of Beverly. Beverly is where Washington's first naval base was. And it's Beverly and Salem, which are both on either side of the one. Beverly's on the north side of the Salem Harbor, and Salem's on the south side of Salem Harbor. At one point, that harbor was the 10th busiest harbor in the world. And it was a major outpost for the East India Trading Company and stuff like that. So this was a pretty populous area back in. In fact, Boston was a smaller city than Beverly and Salem for a very long time until like the 40s, I think, the 1940s. This area was bigger. But Beverly Hills in LA is named after Beverly because people from Beverly left and went to the West Coast and named it Beverly Hills. So yeah, that's sort of actual migration, and you can see it in the names of places even.
Well, Portland, Oregon was almost going to be Boston, but they flipped a coin and named it Portland instead of Boston. So I hadn't really, like, my region was, a lot of folks came from New England, and but I wasn't aware of that. So
how many Manchesters are there?
Not actually Oregon, not that many. I can't think of any in California or Washington, but
we have too many. We have to, our Manchesters here have to have extra names. So I'm like 5 miles from Manchester by the Sea, and the town's name is actually hyphenated, Manchester by the Sea, as opposed to the other Manchesters, which are not by the sea.
We only have one Manchester in this country.
Well, so there was a rule, like you could only name things after stuff from the UK. And you're like, well, we want to have the same name. Instead of fighting, they'll just use the names over and over again.
So for me, I've recently discovered The Expanse, the TV show, and I'm halfway through series 2 at the moment, and I love it. It is great.
The Expanse?
The Expanse.
Oh, The Expanse.
Oh, The Expanse. Oh, love The Expanse.
You're all really quiet, and I was like, do they not know what this is?
The X-Files? X-Pants? No.
The Expanse.
Yeah, have you read the books?
No.
You gotta read the books now. Yeah.
But yeah, it's so good. It all the politics and all, and It's really, really,
actually, let
really
me
enjoying
just a second.
They get the gravity wrong on Ceres.
Well, I guess I mean, there's only so much they can do with kind of.
Well, I mean, like how they're like when they're pouring drinks
Fine.
and they pour it to the side because of the spin.
Yeah.
They calculated that wrong. It would not be noticeable. Wow, look at that.
Oh,
Yeah,
is that
that
the
was-
Rocinante?
Yes, it was a present to myself from WizardCon, and I just got it framed. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
We are. See, I feel like a little better. I feel like I'm not the biggest nerd here. You know. Well, actually, no, I'm still the biggest nerd. Never mind.
this is my.
Says the man in a catsuit with a big gun.
That one you.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes, of course. Well, I mean, it's the Dolph. And actually, I guess Andrew and Amy, actually, none of you guys have read those books. You have not read the book about where the Dolph shows up. But in Jill's books, there's a character named Winter. He's like this massive albino, and he's very surly all the time. But his weapon is called the Dolph Lundgren, and it's not that he named it the Dolph Lundgren. It's actually a brand of weapon. And like there's this whole, like they have like these slogans like, you know, if you have a Dolph, you immediately command respect. You know, like there's all these sorts of slogans that go along with it. Whatnot. So
It sounds like from Borderlands, the game.
So is that the
Yeah.
Perilous Alliance series?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
No, the Expanse is great. And I think it also is really cool that the way the show was produced was really interesting, where it was an independent production company that then sold it to Sci-Fi, which meant that the show managed to like it was Sci-Fi was going to cut it, like they do everything good, but that at least created the conditions for Amazon to buy it, and so now it's at Amazon. So
Yeah. No, it was. I remember I first tried to watch it about a year or so ago, and I just didn't get into it. But I just thought I'm going to give it a go. I binge watched like 2 or 3 episodes, and I was hooked.
nice.
Okay,
The only thing else-
that's good to hear, because I watched the first episode and it didn't really grab me. I wanted to like it and it just didn't. So then I think I rewatched episode 1 a second time and I liked it more the second time around. And so I'll give it the third one, because it took that with Waterworld too, which I now love the movie, but it took watching it 3 times to fall in love with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if Waterworld's a good comparison, Amy.
I
No.
love
Kind of
Waterworld.
Costner
Still.
movie.
I love like the Waterworld and the Postman. Those are all great movies. Obviously Waterworld's silly in some respects, but the interesting thing about, so speaking about co-authors, James S.A. Corey is 2 people.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I actually met them ages ago when after the first book came out. But when you watch the TV show or read the books, you can tell very clearly that one wrote one thread. So one wrote the cop on Ceres, and then the other one wrote the guys on the ships. And so because of that, the TV series, you don't see the connections until like the end of the first season. You're like, well, you start to see bits of them, but it takes a long time to understand why these 2 separate stories are being told. And I think some of that, to a certain extent, makes it a little bit hard to get into, because you don't really get. You have your first episode is an hour or 45 minutes long, but you really only get like 20 some odd minutes of each story to get.
I felt like they really downplayed the horror of the proto-molecule in the show as well. Like in the book, there's this. It's much more horrific when they go into Eros and like.
Really?
Like the whole. I'm blanking on the detective's name, but when he goes back into Eros to just to find Julia or destroy it, like had this complete sense of dread, like, no, it's zombie territory, what are you doing, like because it just completely reassembles people, and there's like skeleton, spines floating around, and people like merged into the the station, and the show, I was really curious how the show was going to do that, and they just kind of didn't even get into it.
Kind of sounds like the Flood in Halo.
Oh yeah, actually it was very much like the Flood. Yeah. But yeah, what I love about that show is how the dread of like real life things in the ships. Like I can't remember which episode it was I watched where the character, in fact, they had moved forward the botanist from Ganymede, but he makes the mistake of not locking down the tools. And this ship is very sanitized, so you can't really see all the stuff that probably would be in the ship, but just this one thing of having a toolbox that he didn't lock down, and they're in a space battle, and all of a sudden all of these tools turn into projectiles inside the cabin. And I was like, yeah, that's, exactly the kind of like thing that they would need to be thinking about all the time.
Yeah.
That people watching Star Wars don't think about, right?
No.
Nope.
Yeah. What you're all saying is so right. The disparate threads with the detective, and I think that threw me the first time I watched it. But I'm really enjoying, the fact that the way the ships are so that, you know, when they only have gravity when they're actually boosting, and all the floors are kind of stacked on top of each other that way, so that, you know, when they're boosting, they've got gravity.
Yeah, the engines are down.
Yeah, and it's just enjoying watching all those little details, which aren't necessarily, they never really say what it is, and you know, these, you know, say why things are that way, but it's all there, and it's all the details are there, and it's very well done.
Even the opening credits, like the world building in that, which I thought was a callback to Game of Thrones, like the way Game of Thrones builds up Westeros, and they do the same thing with, you know, with the moon, and then spreading out from there, so you get a really immediate sense of how humanity has expanded.
And if you like The Expanse and you haven't read the Lyssa's books, you should read the Lyssa's books because they're very similar.
There are plenty of things where I had to be like, don't write The Expanse. Don't write The Expanse.
Yeah, I know. That's actually, us doing the Lyssa series is why I stopped writing The Expanse. Or stopped watching The Expanse, I mean, because I didn't want the ideas for that story to show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and they introduce like the alien concept pretty soon, like the whole proto-molecule. Because I think as I think about that series, like we could probably talk for a whole hour about this, but I think the writers realized really quickly they had to get out of Saul. And so there's actually one transition book that was my least favorite so far, where they just spend on another planet on the other side of a jump gate. But it was that getting through that kind of, okay, the Saul politics are interesting, but we can't do this forever. They had to get out of that, you know, and that was a big problem they had to solve with the series, which is almost like George R.R. Martin's, you know, the two transition books he wrote that nobody likes, Feast of Crows and Dance with Dragons. It was almost the same thing that they kind of struggled with, where you establish this big political issue, you get it to a big head, it's kind of solved, and now how do we get past it? Which is The Expanse is doing something kind of similar, I think. But yeah, I still love it. I mean, this just the stuff they like, attacking Earth with acid, like all the things that they do that are kind of like sci-fi tropes, but I think they do it in a really human way that makes you feel what's happening.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway.
Awesome. The Expanse.
I know. Watch The Expanse.
All right, it's back toward the top of my list.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Actually, I don't even think that stuff is in the show yet. So you should just read the books, then watch the show. So
we're authors. That's what you're supposed to do. Read the books, then watch the show.
Read the books. I know. You just have to make time. Like, that's what I need in my life right now, is just like an extra 2 days every week. That's kind of what I want.
Yeah.
So I need an extra universe where I can go do that, and time is different. So anyway, if you have, as I was saying, if you have not joined our Facebook group, do that. And also, both Amy has a Facebook group, which I think if you get on Facebook and search for the Queen of Sci-Fi, you will find
Queen of Space Opera.
The Queen of Space Opera. I'm sorry. Or if you search for Crystal in Space, will it also come up? Or
probably not. I should probably work on improving that. But yeah, AK Duboff or Queen of Space Opera should bring it up right away. And then my website is amyduboff.com, and I have stuff linked on there too.
Oh, awesome. And Andrew, do you have a Facebook group for?
I do. I have a Facebook group. So facebook.com/groups/Magi Saga fans.
Magi Saga fans. Awesome. Okay. I don't have a Facebook group, so
I'll throw your links in there.
Come on, James. Come on. What are you doing?
I know. Every time I get a newsletter sign up, I'm like, oh, I need to really do something with that. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in probably another 2 weeks or so. So check in. Let us know how you're doing. All right. We'll see everybody later.
Ciao.
Bye. Bye.